The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker is my favorite Zelda game for multiple reasons. The world is huge, the characters are all cheerful and likable, including Link himself. The music is amazing, and the dungeons are all super memorable. It's all just so beautiful and relaxing with a light-hearted vibe that just embodies the sense of a good time. It's a great game that can easily distract you from life. But I think it distracts everybody too much. Would you believe me if I said this game isn't as lighthearted as you think? Nor is it really child-friendly when you think about it. Despite what the game shows you on the outside, if you take the time to look a little deeper, you'll find a much more depressing tale than the game wants you to believe. Ganondorf's more somber attitude, and the kingdom of Hyrule being destroyed only scratches the surface. And putting all the pieces together creates a tragic hidden truth that even rivals that of Majora's Mask. The game subtly hints to most of these things, but I'll need to theorize a bit to fill in the blanks. This isn't a full-blown theory though, so I'll do my damnedest to make sure this is as accurate as possible. These are the reasons why The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker is actually a very dark game. The game states that before the events of The Wind Waker, Ganondorf breaks free from the Sacred Realm and wreaks havoc on Hyrule. In their desperate hour, the people believed the Hero of Time would save them once again, but he didn't appear, simply because he no longer existed in this timeline. The legends depicted him as a magical boy who adventured across time to save whatever land needed him. But this wasn't the case, though. The Hero of Time was really just a normal boy caught in the middle of a never-ending curse and robbed of his childhood. He was just as human as everyone else. But his heroic actions in the past gave the people hope, and with him gone, the kingdom was at a loss. The king then makes the decision to wish on the Triforce to seal Ganondorf away. His wish was granted, but not in the way he wanted. The goddesses informed certain residents to take shelter on Hyrule's highest mountaintops, and flooded Hyrule in its entirety, sinking the king and Ganondorf along with it. Upon visiting the castle, Ganondorf's demonic army is present throughout the castle. No shit. It's obvious they were frozen with the kingdom, and they're required to be unfrozen later on so that the Hero of Winds can test out his new sword. But many people seem to gloss over why they're there in the first place. It's very apparent that they were there to seize it, given the sheer amount of them and the semi-destroyed state of the castle's interior. But now it's sealed away under the waves, with time around it completely frozen. Zelda takes half of the Triforce of Wisdom, leaving the other half with the sealed king behind, followed by her retainers, and left the kingdom going into hiding. A picture of those retainers can be found here on the wall of Hyrule Castle. The Great Flood creates what would later be known as the Great Sea. Eventually, the kingdom of Hyrule is completely forgotten by the population, blissfully ignorant that everything they sail on was once a great kingdom. The Great Flood, for as bad as it sounds, can be considered as Hyrule's equivalent of the apocalypse. Think about it. Only a small number of people were warned of the Great Flood and the destruction it would bring to their kingdom. That means that every other person in the kingdom who had no idea of their fate were buried beneath the waves. That's fucked up. This had to have hit the king, and Ganondorf for that matter, pretty hard, and for good reason. The king lost his entire land and almost all of its people because of one mistake he made, forcing his daughter to go into hiding, who may or may not even be alive as far as he knows. He even outright says he regrets the events that led up to this, and even compares himself to Ganondorf. If only I could do things over again. Not a day of my life has gone by without my thoughts turning to my kingdom of old. I have lived bound to Hyrule. In that sense, I was the same as Ganondorf. Ganondorf was also a king. The king of the Gerudo. It's not at all a stretch to say that the Gerudo were among those killed in the Great Flood. They lived in the desert after all. It's not like they had anywhere to go. It subtly hinted at you that he laments this fact. He can't let go of what could have been, much like the king. My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose into the sky, a burning wind punished my lands, searing the world. And when the moon climbed into the dark of night, a frigid gale pierced our homes. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing: death. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose. This says that Ganondorf wanted to take over Hyrule, not just to rule it, but to allow his tribe to live more peacefully and comfortably like the rest of the world. A world that shunned the Gerudo like animals, as seen in other games like Ocarina of Time, forcing them into thievery just to survive. Many years pass, and eventually Ganondorf and the king wake from their slumber and begin their long-term search for Zelda. The king transfers his spirit to a boat called the King of Red Lions, while Ganondorf creates the Helmerach King to kidnap young maidens, including the sister of a boy who would soon become known as the Hero of Winds. It's somewhat apparent throughout the course of the game that the Keepers of the Pearls, and even the king at one point, believed that the Hero of Time was Hyrule's only true savior. Because of this belief, they weren't fully convinced of the Hero of Wind's potential. The king's conversation with Jabun heavily implies that they refer to the Hero of Winds as sort of a wild card in the grand scheme of things. The boy needed to be tested and prove himself worthy of saving their kingdom before they could truly believe in him. Further proof can be found when meeting the Great Deku Tree for the first time. He mistakes this Link as the Hero of Time and speaks to him in ancient Hylian, but quickly realizes his mistake when the Hero of Winds shows that he has no idea what he's saying at all. Although he realizes this boy isn't the Hero of Time, he seems more convinced of the Hero of Wind's skills than Jabun is. This points to something tragic that may have happened in the past. This is where we dive more into speculation. If you've seen Vortexy Gaming's Hero of the Flood theory, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not much different to the rest of the series, since it's caused by the never-ending cycle of Demise's curse and the Princess of Hyrule with the goddess's chosen hero. But the king wishing on the Triforce can only mean this hero failed. Maybe he was sent away for not being recognized as the Hero of Time, or he died in battle protecting the kingdom. Either way, it's a strong possibility as to how the king's beliefs on the legendary hero were proven wrong, and why the Pearl Keepers are so hesitant to believe in the Hero of Winds. He is only truly acknowledged as a hero by the king when the Triforce of Courage integrates into his hand, proof of a true hero. As Link nears the end of his quest, Ganondorf's more somber side is brought to the forefront. Before, he is known to be malicious and calculating, taking precautions such as killing the two sages that help power the Master Sword and destroying Greatfish Isle to stop Link from getting the third pearl. However, he also shows subtle acts of mercy, such as letting the kidnapped maidens live instead of just outright killing them, when he very well could have at any time if he wanted to. He also spares Link's life on more than one occasion in the game. Once in the beginning, and once in the end, when he could have easily killed him since Link has been actively working against him. And when he finally found Zelda, he wasn't rough with her in the least, but instead treated her with care, even after the Triforce of Wisdom was extracted from her. During the final confrontation, Ganondorf mocks the king's decision to use the Triforce to flood the entire land just to stop him. He emphasizes the irony that Hyrule was destroyed by its own goddesses. Fleshing out Ganondorf's calmer demeanor further is his description of his life in the desert. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing: death. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose. This paints Ganondorf's earlier life pretty well and is surprisingly realistic for one reason. Living in the desert is incredibly hard, so it's only natural that Ganondorf would want to leave it in pursuit of an easier life. I wouldn't be surprised if the overwhelming heat ended up causing the Gerudo's numbers to dwindle with each passing generation. As a king being unable to do anything about this, the most logical step is to relocate his people to the green fields of Hyrule, so his people don't have to die from the harsh conditions of their own land. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, the Gerudo are hinted to be depicted as subhuman by the Hylians. They see themselves as superior beings. So the only option Ganondorf has left is to forcefully take it by conquest. But since the kingdom has been flooded, he's no longer able to do even that. So he first needs to obtain the Triforce, to make it whole once more, and wish for Hyrule to be brought back to the surface, so he can revive it in his own image. Ganondorf's plan doesn't seem very evil anymore now, does it? It's actually very admirable, in a weird sort of way. All he wanted in the end was just a better life for his people, with a calming wind that brings comfort instead of destruction. Even his death quote is of this wind. However, due to the king's wish at the end of the game, Hyrule is now truly buried underwater, forever lost, broken, and forgotten. And that's the power of the depressing and tragic side of Wind Waker. I've been ScourgeBladeZelda, and thanks for watching. Peace. The legends depicted him as a magical boy who adventured across time to save he whatever land he needed. Yeah. Yeah. Great. The kingdom then makes the kingdom. The king. The great flood creates what would the great flood creates what would later be known as the flood creates what would be later known as the Wind Waker's Great Sea. Why did I add Wind Waker there? This says that Ganondorf wanted to take over Hyrule, not just to rule it, but to allow his kingdom, including the sister of a boy who would soon become known as the Hero of Winds. I fucked that up. He is only truly acknowledged as a hero by the king when the before he is shown to be malicious. Yes, he's malicious for men. Ganondorf is by confirmed.